the Morning Mindset edition of Live, Build, Change. I am Carey Green, and we began talking yesterday about this new identity that God has given you. And it is vital that you understand the new identity that God has given you if you're going to live in a way that experiences the new life He's provided and brings great glory and meaning and purpose to your life. So today I wanted to talk to you about the concept of being born again. We heard that term a lot back in the 70s and 80s. It was used a lot. Are you born again? People would ask each other. And I think the term has come to be something that's used without really a lot of understanding of what it actually means. The phrase comes from John chapter 3. And Jesus was speaking with a man named Nicodemus, who was a teacher of the law, so to speak. He was one of those guys who was very religious. And yet he came to Jesus to ask him questions because it seems like Nicodemus was starting to be intrigued by Jesus. And so Jesus tells him, you have to be born again. And in the Aramaic, which is what the Gospels were originally written in, the word Jesus uses actually means born from above. So he's not talking about an earthly birth. He's talking about being born spiritually. Because in chapter 5 of the book of Romans, we discover that we all have inherited a sinful identity from Adam, the first man. Because when he sinned, it tainted his soul. His spirit actually died. And he could no longer relate to God in the same way he had before because he had a dead spirit. And we inherited that same identity of being a sinful, dead sinner in the eyes of God. We inherited that from Adam just by being born as a human being. But Jesus is speaking to Nicodemus about something different. He says, you must be born from above. And we know, because we've used the term born again to describe it, that means you have to place your faith in Jesus Christ. You have to become a believer in Jesus Christ, a Christ follower. And what is really happening there when we place our faith in Christ? Well, think about the words. Place your faith in Christ. You are relying on Him. You are trusting Him to do something for you. You're depending on the belief that His death on the cross redeems you from that sinful identity and that sinful life that you've lived because of the identity you got from Adam. And Jesus, in chapter 5 of Romans, is called the second Adam, a second man who comes and He gives life to all who place their faith in Him. And so He gives us this new identity through what we call being born again, new birth. And birth is what determines your identity. So being born as a human being on planet Earth, your identity automatically becomes that of a sinful human being because you're born a sinful human being. But when Jesus says you're born from above now, He's talking about something totally different. You've now inherited a new identity. And that's really what I want to drive home this morning because it's at the heart of Romans chapter 7. Paul says, you are dead to sin. You have died to the law so that you can belong to another, to Him who's been raised from the dead, in order that you may bear fruit to God. He says, for while we were living in the flesh, our sinful passions aroused by the law were at work in our members to bear fruit for death. But now we are released from the law, having died to that which held us captive, so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code. You see, our new identity is one that's permeated by the Spirit of God. We are a new creation, and we have to believe that. We have to get that entrenched in our souls because what you believe will determine how you behave and how you live. It's vital for you to know today you are a new creature in Christ Jesus. Let's talk again tomorrow on The Morning Mindset.